Your health is your greatest wealth. And the key to maintaining your health is being data-driven and staying on top of these metrics. And the idea that health isn't a sprint, it's a marathon. It's a long-term investment. You need a strong strategy and an eye for detail. And getting these metrics will tell you exactly how you're doing. And tracking them over time will show you the direction that you're going in.
Welcome to the Legendary Life Podcast, where it's all about taking control of your health, losing fat, transforming your body, and living the life you deserve with celebrity fitness trainer and longevity enthusiast, Ted Rice. Hey guys, quick announcement for you. I'm working on the final touches of my new workshop, and I'm super excited because it's going to be a game changer. In this training, I'll be revealing a simple yet effective 5-step process that our high-achieving clients use to burn fat, boost energy, and build better habits for life. If you're a man or a woman over 40 and you've been prioritizing your business or career over your health, this is the perfect opportunity for you. It's time to achieve as much success with your health as you have with your wealth. The release date of this special training is July 10th. So don't miss out on this opportunity to reclaim your health and build the body you've always wanted. You can become unstoppable after 40. That's what I'm going to share with you. Hope you're excited and see you there. Today, we're going to dive into something that is going to help you create some standards for yourself with your health. Far too often, I'll speak to someone, a high achiever, and I'll ask them, hey, well, how is your health doing right now? Oh, I feel pretty good. I'm doing all right. And I'm like, okay, well, what's your body fat percentage? Don't know. What about your blood pressure? Is that something you monitor? Have no idea. So what I want to tell you is this. Far too often, we use how we feel as a measure of how we're doing. It's the wrong way to do it. It's kind of like saying, well, I feel pretty good about the way my business is going. And what would you ask that person? Well, show me the numbers, right? And that's what we're going to be talking about today. What is up, my friend? And welcome to the Legendary Life Podcast. I'm your host, Ted Rice, health expert and coach to executives, entrepreneurs, and other high achievers. We produce this podcast for two reasons. One, I've been in this business 24 years, and I want to help simplify the process of getting in shape for you. There are too many shiny objects to pay attention to. It's so complicated, so many conflicting views on things. And my job here is to simplify this process for you and to bring you the best, most actionable health information on the internet. That's the goal. The second reason is simple. If you're a high performer and you know the fastest way to get results is through coaching or mentorship, and you're looking to create as much success with your health as you have with your career or your business, you'll know who to hire. So let's dive into it today. I was having a conversation with a current client. He went through my group coaching program, came out the other side, and he said, I learned a lot. I feel like I'm doing many things different. And right now I kind of want to, he wanted to work with me. He wanted to continue to work with me, but he wasn't motivated to do it. And I said, well, listen, the best way to get you motivated isn't me to yell at you and tell you, hey, you should want this because your health is important. I said, listen, let's get some objective measurements. Let's get some blood work. Let's get your body fat done. And then we'll see what happens and see what there is to work on. And he went from not being motivated at all and buying into his story that his health was doing well to saying, okay, I'm pumped up. Why did that happen? Because instead of saying, well, I feel pretty good, so I must be doing pretty good, we had some standards to compare him to. For example, he had a lot more visceral body fat. Now, if you don't know the difference between visceral and subcutaneous body fat, subcutaneous body fat, it's the body fat we all want to get rid of. It's like if you pinch, like I'm pinching my belly right now, it's like, oh, I can feel the skin, and right underneath the skin, I can feel the body fat, and then I feel the muscle underneath that. So that's subcutaneous. But if you can feel, you can't feel beneath your muscle, but if you can feel beneath your subcutaneous fat and feel your muscle, well, you have organs behind there. You have your liver, your pancreas, you have your heart. Of course, that's more up, more, higher than where your other organs are. But you have organs, and visceral body fat is organ body fat. It is terrible to have. It's basically, if you Google pictures of it, you'll see how terrible it is. Google visceral body fat or heart fat, and you'll see the difference between a healthy heart and a heart with fat all over it. We're not supposed to have fat on our organs. It secretes inflammatory cytokines and other things, or chemicals rather, called cytokines. We're not going to open up that can of worms, but it secretes these chemicals and they're not good. They're inflammatory. So what I want to do today is sell you on this idea, right? Because if you ask an entrepreneur, hey, what are some fundamentals of running a successful business? One of them will always be, well, you got to know your numbers. And they'll quote Peter Drucker, the management guru, and say, well, what gets measured gets managed. It's a common answer. And it's true. And the same is also true for your health. But when I ask a lot of high performers, well, what's your body fat percentage? No idea. And then a lot of men, they don't like the idea of BMI. Well, my BMI is high, but I work out all the time. It's like, okay, so you think you're so jacked? Go take a body fat test. And often I have clients who have 30% body fat, 40% body fat. You're not doing okay. I mean, listen, I'm not shaming you here, but if someone is, for example, if someone has super high blood pressure, they can be a good person, but you're in trouble. You're at higher risk. So what I want to tell you is that just like you would manage a successful business, managing your health should be data driven. You can't just make decisions based on gut feelings about how you think you're doing. You need to track, analyze, and adjust. So let's get into it. I've put together a list of the top health metrics you must know. So number one is body fat percentage. Forget about your BMI. It's good to know, and it is useful. There's a lot of research talking about the importance, but the real star of the show is body fat percentage. Studies have shown that body fat percentage is a much better indicator of overall health and disease risk than BMI. So one study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that higher body fat percentages were linked to an increased risk of cardiovascular diseases, even among those with normal BMIs. So this is the big story, by the way, narrative, by the way, that's not being talked about in our conversation about health. People will say, well, they have normal BMIs. One conversation is about in China, there's a high rate of diabetes. And a lot of people have normal BMIs. It's like, well, I don't care what their BMI is. What's their body fat? I guarantee you it's 25, it's 30, it's high. So track your body fat, not just your weight. This will give you a clear picture of your physical health and how well your workout and diet regimen is working, or lack of workout and diet regimen. Now, what body fat percentage should you aim for? This is going to be focused on men. So what we're talking about is if you have a body fat percentage of 25% or higher as a man, you're obese, regardless of what your BMI says. Average is around 18 to 24%. And most guys are not even close to this usually. Being fit is 14 to 17%. Athletes can sometimes get down to 16 to 13%. And then we have essential fat, which is 2 to 5%. Now, you don't need to memorize these numbers because I'm going to simplify it for you. And just one thing about the essential fat, which I think is important. If you lose too much body fat, even if you have muscle, even if you have other things, you can die. So we have an essential amount of body fat that you need on your body. We've demonized fat too much, but we need it because we will literally die without it. Okay. So If you want to optimize your general health, my recommendation for you is maintain a body fat percentage of around 8 to 17%. Again, you need to know what it is to understand where you fit in this. So we recommend our clients get this measured with either a DEXA scan, which is dual energy X-ray absorptiometry. It was tough to say. Or an in-body, which uses something called bioelectrical impedance analysis. Okay. So again, a DEXA scan or an in-body. And many people ask, well, where do I find one of those? Just Google DEXA scan and your city or in-body in your city, and you'll see the options that you have. Now, smaller cities might not have this, but most cities will. Okay. So we're not going to get into how to change your body fat percentage because I talk about it all the time. Calorie deficit through diet and lifting weights, getting more steps in. But I want you to focus on knowing your numbers. Don't worry about how to change it yet. Worry about knowing focus on getting this assessed. Okay. Get a DEXA scan. This is not a small thing. It's huge, hugely important to know your body fat percentage. The doctors of the future won't be using BMI, at least not for, let's say, high achievers who can afford to do more advanced assessments. They're going to be using body fat percentage, and your doctor should be using it with you, in my opinion. So again, where you want to get to is somewhere in the 8 to 17%. You don't have to be 10 or lower or even 15 or lower, but 17% or lower is what we're looking for. But getting a DEXA scan or an in-body, don't have your trainer use the calipers. You have to be highly trained to do it. I did it for years. It's not that accurate. You have to get a master, and you probably don't have access to someone who with that level of mastery. So get a DEXA scan, get an in-body. And if you want to check out this chart, in case you're wondering, well, where are you getting these numbers from, Ted? Go to American Council on Exercise and put body fat percentage in Google, and the chart will come up. Or you could go to legendarylifepodcast.com and read this article where we've created some charts for you. So the next one is blood pressure. You've heard it 1,000 times. Keep your blood pressure in check. But do you really know why? Well, high blood pressure is referred to as a silent killer. It often has no symptoms until you have your first heart attack or stroke or diagnosis of kidney disease. What's interesting about blood pressure is you don't see people arguing about it. For example, cholesterol levels, people on social media, both influencers and doctors and all types of people, they'll argue about cholesterol, even though I think it's pretty clear what the evidence shows. But nobody talks about blood pressure. Nobody argues about it. And as a result, people don't talk about it as much. People don't focus on it as much. But it's one of the most important and easy metrics to track. So what should your blood pressure be? The American Heart Association's research shows that maintaining a healthy blood pressure can add years to your life. And when we're talking about healthy blood pressure, we're talking about less than 120 over less than 80. So you'll see that 120 over 80 is acceptable. And if you go to your doctor and they measure blood pressure and it's elevated, of course, there's something called white coat syndrome where you get a little nervous going to the doctor. So your blood pressure is elevated, but it's not usually elevated. It's just a little nervous because maybe you haven't been to the doctor in a while, or maybe you don't like being at the doctor's office, which is why we'll talk about something, a way for you to track it on your own. But understand that 120 over 80 is elevated. We want less than 120, less than 80. Not too low, but that's not usually. If you have low blood pressure, you probably know about it. For most of us, if you're struggling with excess body fat, with stress, etc., if you're a high achiever, your blood pressure is most likely not going to be low. So to keep track, invest in a home blood pressure monitor. There's a bunch of them out there. I don't have a specific one to refer you to. What I do is when I go in to the pharmacies, I get it taken there, or go to a doctor's visit, I'll have it taken there. And if your readings are consistently high, you've got to take some action because, again, people don't feel like it's a big deal because you don't feel your blood pressure high, right? There can be what's called a hypertensive crisis, but that's a specific thing. That's when it's higher than 180 over 120. That's when you want to talk to your doctor immediately. But most of us don't get there, okay? And without some disease or some other type of problem. So if you have 150 over 90, that's high and it's damaging your blood vessels, but you're not going to know it because you're not going to feel it until it's too late. Again, it's known as a silent killer. So track it, not just at your doctor's appointment once a year or every 6 months. Hopefully it's more than once a year, but every 6 months, whatever it is, track your blood pressure. Number 3, blood sugar levels. This isn't just for diabetics. Maintaining healthy blood sugar levels is vital for everyone. A study published in the New England Journal of Medicine showed that people with higher blood sugar levels, even those without diabetes, had an increased risk of developing dementia. So there's 2 types of blood sugar tests. There's fasting glucose or fasting blood sugar, and hemoglobin A1C, which is a measure of your average blood sugar levels over the past 2 to 3 months. So why people do this, or why doctors do this, or labs do this, is because a fasting blood sugar test measures your blood sugar in the moment. But what we also want to see is if you have elevated blood sugar levels over the past 2 to 3 months. That's why having a hemoglobin A1C test in addition to your fasting blood sugar test is really important, or fasting glucose is what it's called. And how do you get that? Well, a regular blood test from your doctor can help you to track this. And if you're trying to make changes to your body or to your health, definitely get this done quarterly instead of yearly. Make sure that you're not telling yourself, well, hey, I'm eating better, I'm making better decisions, I'm exercising more. That doesn't matter. That's like saying, well, I'm working harder. I feel really good about the amount of work that I'm doing. Use metrics. Be data-driven. This is something that's missing from the conversation about health. Be data-driven. Doctors will do this, but they're expecting to see you once per year because everybody's busy. It costs money to go to the doctor. But here's the thing. If you're a high performer, money's not the issue. Time might be the issue, but by focusing on your health, you'll get more time because, again, having poor health or having something like high blood sugar that eventually turns into diabetes will turn into a lot more work for you. It will turn into a lot more work for you. It's just you're getting more time now in the short term, but you're going to have to work harder and longer later to manage your diabetes or to deal with your first heart attack. Because also blood sugar is implicated not just in dementia, but in heart attacks as well, if you have diabetes. I should say that specifically. So the next one is daily step count. This is an easy one to measure. And we've all heard the magic number 10,000 steps a day. And you might have wondered, does it really matter? And the answer is yes. 2022 study published in the Journal of Sports Sciences looked at what's called the dose-response relationship between daily step count and risk of death. And this is just a fancy way when we're talking about dose-response relationship. We're just talking about, okay, well, we'll have one group. For groups of people who walk 5,000 steps or less, what's their health like? What diseases do they come down with? How long do they live? Okay, what about people who walk around 10,000? What about 20,000? So they looked at a group of people, a bunch of people actually, I forget exactly how many, and they found some interesting information. And in the article for this episode, you can go to legendarylifepodcast.com and you'll see the 8 health metrics men over 40 can't ignore. So what they found was this: 5,000 steps per day seemed to be the threshold where your risk of health issues and premature death rises sharply. And again, if you go see the article, which, you don't have to sign up or give me your email or anything. It's just posted on the website for this article or for this episode. You'll see how steep it goes up. It really rises sharply. And this is important because the average adult in the US gets between 3,000 to 4,000 steps daily. So how many should you shoot for? Based on the latest research, 7,000 steps seems to be that minimum. So it's not 10,000. Hopefully that's good news for you. It's around 7,000. And if you want optimal health, well, then you're talking more about 10 to 15,000, somewhere in there. Now, personally, I average around 10,000 steps, actually around 11,000 steps per day since 2019 when I started tracking them with my Oura Ring. And I recommend get a wearable. You can also, if you've got an iPhone, that's what I have. I'm unfamiliar with other phones. I've been using my iPhone for years. You'll have to Google if you have an Android or a Pixel. You'll have to figure out how to check your steps on your own there. But I recommend getting some type of wearable because you're not always going to have your phone on you. Hopefully you don't, at least. And you really want to dial this in. So I wear my Oura Ring and I look at my steps every day. How am I doing? Am I getting lazy? Am I getting enough steps in? So investing in some type of wearable is the way to get this handled and to dial in. And this is a big one. We're talking about better health, better longevity, something that you can look at and easily track. Number 5, apolipoprotein B, also known as ApoB. Unfortunately, we're at a time where medicine is slow to catch up, although all this research is coming from medical research. So cholesterol levels are important, but if you're looking for a more sensitive and specific marker for cardiovascular risk, meet apolipoprotein B. This little compound is part of many types of lipoproteins, including the infamous LDL or bad cholesterol. But why ApoB matters is because each atherogenic plaque-causing particle contains one molecule of ApoB. So when you measure ApoB, you get a direct count of these heart disease-causing particles. LDL cholesterol measurements, on the other hand, can sometimes be misleading because they measure the cholesterol inside the particles, but not how many particles there are. An example of this would be like if you had a lot of trucks in the city, let's say it like this. Let's say you're dealing with a traffic jam, in other words, atherosclerosis, and you're trying to figure out, well, how do we get rid of these traffic jams? How do we have a smooth flow of traffic all the time? You wouldn't look at, well, how many people are on the road at a given time. You would look at how many cars are on the road because there could be more than one person in a car. I hope that is making sense. So the issue is not how many people are on the road, which is what your LDL measures. It's apolipoprotein B. So how many cars are on the road? Because you could have 4 people in a car, but that's still just one car on the road. So it doesn't matter for the traffic jam how many people are in the car or not. It's how many cars are on the road. And by the way, a study published in The Lancet concluded that ApoB was superior to all other lipid variables, including LDL cholesterol, in predicting the risk of heart disease. So an optimal ApoB level is usually considered to be below 90 milligrams per deciliter. And again, if you want to see this article, go to legendarylifepodcast.com. And if you're at high risk for heart disease, your doctor might even want it lower. But the only way to know your ApoB is through a blood test, and you probably have to ask for it. I look at my clients' blood chemistry all the time because I'm looking to manage their risk as well. And we have to ask for ApoB to be tested. So we have to look at it. We have to ask for it to be tested. And I'm not going to go into how you can improve, or at least not into detail on how you can improve your ApoB levels. because I'm creating an article, an episode that will go into this really important metric. But what we're really talking about is losing body fat and reducing saturated fat in your diet is what we're really talking about. There are some other things as well, reducing sugary drinks, even though I've talked about, and I think this is a little bit of a tangent, but I believe it's worth your time. You can be lean, but if you're eating too much saturated fat, let's say you got this calories idea handled. You're like, wow, you know what? I figured the calorie game out. I'm lean. I'm actually 17% body fat, just like Ted said I should be. And I know how many calories I'm eating and I've got it dialed in. And guess what? I eat a lot of dessert. I'm eating ribeye steaks. I put butter on everything and I manage my calories. And so I'm lean. You can still have a high ApoB level. So this is why I'm presenting this metric to you, because I believe this is what I'm holding my clients to. And this is what I'm looking at with my clients, because all the things I'm talking about, they don't necessarily require medication. In other words, a doctor to help you. They require changes in your diet, changes in your activity levels, changes in your body fat. So there you have it. ApoB, a critical and often overlooked marker of heart health, something to start asking your doctor for. Number 6, sleep quality. And if you're a high achiever, sleep is probably the first thing that you sacrifice. But here's why you shouldn't. A 2016 study published in the journal Nature found that around 7 to 8 hours of sleep is the sweet spot for avoiding disease and early death. So we're talking about avoid sleeping less than 6 hours. It's not okay. Even if you think you feel okay, again, damage is cumulative over time. Some of these things like the ApoB, the high blood pressure, you're not going to know till you have a problem. You're not going to know if you have a problem until you get it tested or you have a crisis. Please don't be that way. The reason I'm so passionate about health, there is nothing more important. No, Ted, my family's more important. Great. And guess what? Your family's going to have to do when you get sick is take you to the doctor and deal with the emotional fallout of you being sick. And that's what happened to me with my dad. And this is a mission, a calling for me. I'm going to make sure that I don't burden. Of course, I'm going to have health problems. We're all going to have health problems. We're all going to get old. We're all going to have some things that we're going to deal with. But I want to get rid of the preventable ones. Some of us are going to succumb to genetic issues. For example, I had a giant, almost cancerous polyp in my colon in 2021. And it'd been there for a long time before 2021, but I had it taken out, even in spite of me getting lean and exercising. I mean, I can't remember going 2 weeks without exercising unless I was really sick. So I've been healthy. I've been doing all this stuff for most of my life, being very active, eating a lot of high quality, nutrient dense foods. Yeah, I got a little chubby in my 30s, but I was mostly lean and I still had this issue. Well, what about my dad? Well, he had colon cancer early. So again, just because you feel good on or okay on 6 hours of sleep or less doesn't mean it's okay for the long run. It's kind of like, well, I'm using my credit card to pay my bills right now, and it doesn't really feel bad until you look and like me in my 20s, and I had like $10,000 worth of debt. So again, think a little long term, just like you do with your business, just like you do with your retirement here. You don't want to, because of mistakes you made in your 30s or 40s, pay for them in your 50s, 60s, or 70s. So aim for 7 to 8 hours of sleep and maintain regular sleep and wake times, create a dark and quiet sleep environment, all the sleep hygiene stuff that you hear all the time, limit screen time before bed, or I watch Netflix every night. And what I do is I just I've got the Apple thing where it dims my screen because I mostly watch on my computer, even when I have a nice big screen TV, mostly just watch on my computer, my laptop. And I track my sleep with Aura to make sure that if I wake up and I see that I haven't slept 7 hours, I try to make myself go back to sleep because I'm the guy, probably like you, who can wake up after 5.5 hours or 6 hours and feel like, you know what? I slept 5 hours and 45 minutes. I kind of feel like getting up right now. So I'm just going to get up and get to work. I don't do that anymore. I force myself to fall back asleep and I feel so much better. And also, again, it's an investment in your health, in your long-term health. Number 7, resting heart rate. Now you can go do a Cooper test on your own, or you can go to an exercise lab and get your VO2 max tested. But if you really think about it, it's something that you're not going to do that often. What I love about resting heart rate is that it's something that's easy to check. So in case you don't know what it is, although you probably have an idea by the name, your resting heart rate is the number of times your heart beats per minute when you're at rest. And research has shown a higher resting heart rate was associated with a higher risk of mortality from all causes and cardiovascular disease. So a study in 2019 published in the journal Open Heart found that men in their 50s who had a resting heart rate of 75 beats per minute or higher was linked to a doubling in the risk of an early death from all causes. So it's something that you can look at and something I look at all the time. Now, you might say, well, I'll just shoot for something lower than 75. But what I want to tell you is get your resting heart rate to 60 or lower. And that's a good goal based on a 1997 study from the European Heart Journal that shows this is where your risk of having problems goes down. And I use an Oura ring to track my resting heart rate. Again, I talk a lot about Oura. It's just because I wear it. I don't have any code for you. Not that I would be opposed to doing it, but I don't have any type of relationship with Oura other than that I'm a happy customer. Let's say mostly happy customer. So I'm a mostly happy, like 90% or high, maybe even a little higher, happy customer. There've been a couple issues with the battery dying on some of the previous rings. But again, you don't have to use an Oura, although I think it's the one that I recommend to my clients. Any wearable like an Apple Watch, a Whoop, a Fitbit, Garmin will work, and they're worth investing in. And if your resting heart rate is consistently high, it might be a sign that your heart is working way too hard, even while you're at rest. And we'll talk about that another time. But basically, we're talking about managing your stress and doing more cardiovascular exercise. Number 8, testosterone levels. So testosterone is a key hormone that plays a significant role not only in male sexual development, we all know it as the man hormone or male hormone, but also in maintaining muscle mass, bone density, red blood cell production, and emotional health as well. So it's not just about sex drive and muscle, it's a critical player for your bones, for your red blood cells, and for mental health. In fact, research has discovered a strong correlation between low testosterone levels and depression in men. And I want to say I hesitate to add this one because I think testosterone is highly misunderstood, and I think it's a very downstream hormone. And there's not a lot of people. I really want to get an expert on the show to talk in more detail about testosterone and free testosterone and what it really means. And if we don't have symptoms, but we have low testosterone, does that really matter? If you're not feeling depressed, if you have normal erectile function, if you have a normal sex drive, do you really need to focus on raising it like what you see people talk about on social media? So look out for that. But I haven't found a person who I would want to have on the show and talk to them about it. So many people, and I mean doctors here, so many doctors, they just like, oh yeah, you got to get your testosterone level to at least 1,000 or above. And by the way, sign up for my TRT, even though it's going to shrink your testicles and you're going to have to stay on it for life, because as soon as you go off it, your levels go back down to normal. And if they do go back to normal, because you can even shut down your natural production of testosterone. So again, I want to have an expert on it. Come on the show. Perhaps if you know a good one, you can refer one to me and reach out to me on either social media or on my website. But I'm really picky about who I have on the show to talk about this stuff, so I don't have to suffer someone's BS which is so prevalent right now. But when we talk about testosterone, it's important to understand there's that total testosterone I mentioned and also free testosterone. So total testosterone includes all the forms of testosterone in your body. And then free testosterone is specifically the unbound or what's called bioavailable testosterone that's freely available to act on body tissues. And so the range is quite high for total testosterone. It's 300 to 1,000 nanograms per deciliter. Again, go to legendarylifepodcast.com if you want to read this article and look at the charts. And free testosterone, which usually constitutes about 2 to 3% of total testosterone, falls in the range of 90 to 30. Oh gosh, I forget what that P stands for, but it's PG/milliliters. I forget what that's called for. Called what the P stands for. Like nanograms is NG. I think it's picograms if I remember correctly. Sorry for that. But keep in mind that testosterone levels, they can vary significantly from person to person. They can also fluctuate throughout the day. And symptoms of low T seem to be more important than your actual levels. That said, I still like to track my clients' testosterone. I still like to optimize for it. I believe it's a sign that things are going in the right direction. And we're not going to get into how to boost testosterone today. I'll have, again, an article and episode coming out on that. But just know that you want your levels in the ranges that I mentioned. And if you want to go look those up, go to legendarylifepodcast.com. So remember, that's it for today. Remember, your health is your greatest wealth. And the key to maintaining your health is being data-driven and staying on top of these metrics. And the idea that health isn't a sprint, it's a marathon. It's a long-term investment. You need a strong strategy and an eye for detail. And getting these metrics will tell you exactly how you're doing, and tracking them over time will show you the direction that you're going in. Again, health, it's just that foundation. It's the one investment that guarantees returns in productivity, longevity, and your experience of life. And keep in mind that successful people aren't just intelligent or lucky. They're above all healthy and energetic. They understand that health is the foundation of all wealth, success, and achievement. So we're not just talking about living more years, we're talking about adding more years to your life here. So that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this. Again, you know where to go if you want to see all the charts and everything I mentioned in this episode. So you can start tracking these yourself. And what I would ask you is, if this hit home for you, share this episode with someone who maybe needs a bit of a check or is looking for information about this. If they think they're doing okay, but they haven't been to the doctor in a while, they don't know their body fat percentage, this is something that can get people motivated to do something about their health. And that's what I've seen with my clients, especially the high achievers who think they're doing okay, is I'm not that fat, so I feel okay. I mean, I kind of exercise every once in a while. That's not good enough. Have stronger metrics, the ones I mentioned here, the 8 that I mentioned here, which are body fat percentage, blood pressure, blood sugar levels, daily step count, apolipoprotein B, sleep quality, resting heart rate, and testosterone levels, both free and total. That's it for me. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Speak to you next time. And on Monday, I have a special guest. His name is Adam Bornstein. He's a renowned personal trainer, and he's worked with big names like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Ever heard of him? Right? And LeBron James. Now, Adam, he's not just rock star personal trainer, but he's an award-winning editor, best-selling author, and an influential figure in health and fitness. And we're going to have him on to discuss his latest book, You Can't Screw This Up. So we get into a great conversation. He talks about how he met Arnold too and what it was like to work with him. And we get into some actionable advice and why most of what the diet industry and diet books are telling you, it's just wrong. So a lot of what he's going to discuss is going to sound familiar because you've been listening to this podcast, but you're going to hear it from a different perspective. And I think it's so invaluable. So if that sounds good to you, you're going to want to tune in on Monday. Have a great weekend and speak to you then.
That's a wrap on today's episode, folks. We truly hope that you found immense value in our discussions and that these insights will help propel you to that next level of health, regardless of where you are right now. And if you know someone who could benefit from listening to this episode, perhaps a fellow high achiever or driven professional in your network, do us a favor and share it with them. You never know how much of an impact these conversations can have on someone's life and success. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Legendary Life Podcast. We're on a mission to help you reach your fullest potential, and your support means the world to us. So until next time, stay ambitious, stay focused, and keep crushing your health goals.